My cousin Brent raised his beer at our 4th of July barbecue and laughed in my face. "To Nora," he said, "the county's bravest helicopter Uber driver." Everyone laughed. My mother laughed too, then tried to hide it behind her napkin. Then I looked down and saw my cousin Maddie's phone. Brent had just posted the family photo we had taken 10 minutes earlier. I was gone, cropped clean out. The caption said, "Bennett Blood. Fireproof since 1968. And the worst part was not even the joke. It was not the laughter. It was my Uncle Ray sitting at the head of the table, staring down at his paper plate, pretending he had not seen it. The same man I had once flown through a wall of smoke to save. He knew my call sign. He knew what I had done. He knew I was Sparrow Three. But when his son erased me in front of the whole family, Ray stayed silent. So I smiled. I lifted my lemonade like I was part of the joke. But while fireworks cracked over the dry Colorado hills, I made myself one promise. The next time my family laughed me out of my own story, I would not help them do it. My name is Nora Bennett. And that was the last summer I let anyone mistake my silence for weakness. I grew up in Cedar Falls, Colorado, a mountain town small enough that everybody knew your truck before they knew your name. Families waved at stop signs. Kids sold lemonade outside church. Neighbors brought casseroles when someone got sick, then remembered the dish for 20 years. In Cedar Falls, stories mattered. And in the Bennett family, one story mattered more than all the others. The story of courage. Except courage in my family had always been given one face. Ray Bennett, my father's older brother, retired fire chief, local legend. The man whose photo still hung in the lobby of Station 7 beside an old axe, a folded flag and a plaque with his years of service. Ray had run toward fires for 30 years. Nobody could take that away from him. But his son Brent acted like courage was something he inherited with the last name. Brent was a firefighter too, though he treated the job like a personal brand. He made training videos online. He sold t-shirts that said "Built for the Flames." He did podcast interviews. He posted slow-motion clips of himself dragging hoses, kicking doors, and staring into smoke like the fire had personally challenged him. People loved it, especially my family. Grandma printed his posts and tucked them into photo albums. My aunt shared every video with captions like, "My brave boy." My mother always said Brent has that natural leadership, just like Ray. And me, I flew medical rescue helicopters for the county. I landed on highways after pileups in frozen fields, after hunting accidents beside lakes when kids nearly drowned, and on ridgelines where ambulances could not reach. I had carried heart attack victims, injured firefighters, premature babies, and strangers who squeezed my hand before they even knew my name. But to my family, I was still little Nora who liked flying. At Thanksgiving, Brent asked if my helicopter came with cup holders for rich hikers with twisted ankles. At Christmas, he gave me a toy helicopter from the dollar store and said backup aircraft in case the real one gets tired. Everyone laughed. My mother touched my wrist and whispered, "He's just teasing. Don't be sensitive." That was how it always worked. Brent got to cut. I got told not to bleed. The worst thing about being erased by family is that it rarely happens all at once. It happens in small, polite ways. They talk over you. They forget to ask about your work. They leave your name out of stories. They crop you from photos and call it an accident. They laugh at the person you are becoming because admitting your strength would ruin the easy version of you they prefer. 3 years before that barbecue, the Canyon Ridge fire changed my life. It was late August, the kind of dry Colorado summer where the grass sounded brittle under your boots, and every breeze felt like a warning. By noon, the sky over Cedar Falls had gone brown. By 4, ash was falling over the grocery store parking lot like dirty snow. By 6, the fire jumped Old Mill Road. I was on duty at the county air base when the call came through. Station 7 trapped north drainage. Multiple firefighters pinned. One unconscious. Ground access blocked. Air rescue requested. My coffee cup froze halfway to my mouth. Station 7. Ray's old crew. Brent's crew. I looked at my flight nurse, Carla. She was already moving, tying her hair back, checking oxygen tanks. Her face calm in that way only emergency workers understand. Then dispatch broke through again. The voice was cracked, broken by smoke and fear. Any aircraft in range, this is Station 7. We can't see the road. We can't get out. We have one man down. We need extraction now." My chief looked at me. "Nora, visibility is bad," he said. "No one will blame you if you say no. That is what people get wrong about courage. They think brave people feel certain. They do not." My hands were cold. My stomach was tight. Every part of me knew flying into that smoke was dangerous, maybe impossible. But men were trapped on that ridge, and one of them was my uncle. So I climbed in. My call sign that day was Sparrow 3. The helicopter shook before we even cleared the pad. Wind punched us from the west. Smoke rolled over the hills in thick waves, swallowing the trees, the road, and the world beneath us. Carla called out altitude. Dispatch kept fading in and out. Then Ray's voice came through. Not strong, not legendary, just human. Sparrow 3. "If you can hear us, we're north of the drainage. No clear path. Smoke's closing." I lowered the nose. I could barely see the ridge. My eyes burned. The radio popped again. This time it was Brent. "We can't breathe." "Where's the helicopter? Where are they?" There was panic in his voice. I never judged him for that. Fear makes everyone honest. Then I saw the flare, a small red blink through the smoke. Carla pointed. "There. 2:00. The landing zone was not a landing zone. It was an old logging road, half covered in branches, cut into the ridge, like someone had dragged a knife through the dirt. Too narrow, too smoky, too close to trees. I brought the helicopter down anyway. The skids hit the ground hard. Men appeared out of the smoke like ghosts. One firefighter was being carried. Another fell to one knee before someone dragged him forward. And then I saw Ray. His helmet was gone. His face was black with ash. His eyes found mine through the windshield. He knew. In that 1 second, he knew exactly who had come for him. He pressed one gloved hand against the glass. Then they loaded him in. There was no music, no heroic speech, no perfect rescue like in the movies. There was coughing rotor noise, Carla yelling vitals, and my hands locked so tightly around the controls that my fingers cramped. The fire crawled beneath us as we lifted out, and when the helicopter finally broke through the smoke into open sky, nobody cheered. People just breathed. Sometimes survival sounds like silence. The next morning, Cedar Falls woke up to headlines. Station 7. Survives Canyon Ridge blaze. Brent posted a photo of himself covered in soot, staring into the camera with his jaw clenched. The caption said, "Still standing." My family shared it everywhere. My mother commented, "Proud of you, Brent." My aunt wrote, "A true Bennett hero." Grandma printed the photo and put it on the mantel before dinner. No one asked who flew the helicopter. No one asked who landed in the smoke. No one asked why Ray went quiet whenever Canyon Ridge came up. A week later, Ray stopped by my apartment. He did not even come inside. He stood in the doorway holding his old Firehouse cap in both hands. For the first time in my life, Uncle Ray looked small. "I know it was you," he said. I waited. He stared down at the floor. "You did good, Nora. That was it. You did good. Not thank you. Not I'll tell them. Not you saved my crew. Not you saved my son. Just enough truth to ease his guilt, but not enough truth to change anything. I should have asked him why. I should have told him how it felt to sit at family dinners and watch his son become the face of a rescue. He only survived because I flew through fire to reach him. But I was tired and young and still trained by my family to protect everyone's comfort except my own. So I nodded. Ray left, and the silence stayed. Over the next 3 years, Brent's version of Canyon Ridge grew bigger every time he told it. At church breakfasts, he talked about staring death in the face. At high school career day, he told students, "When you're built for the flames, fear doesn't get a vote." At the Firehouse fundraiser, he used the story to raise money for a new training room. He called it the Built for the Flames training room. His face was on the flyer. Ray's name was on the flyer. The burned hillside was on the flyer. The words across the top said, "Honoring the courage of Station 7. There was no helicopter, no flight crew, no Sparrow 3. Then Brent posted a video standing in front of the firehouse, arms crossed, voice low and serious. "That fire made me who I am," he said. "Some people run toward danger. Some people just circle above it." He smiled after he said it. A small smile, sharp enough to cut. The video got thousands of views in our little town. My aunt shared it. Grandma asked if I had seen how powerful Brent looked. My mother taped the fundraiser flyer to her fridge with a sunflower magnet. I stood in her kitchen staring at it while she stirred soup on the stove. "You going to Brent's fundraiser?" she asked. I wasn't invited. She frowned like that was a small mistake. "Oh, honey, I'm sure it wasn't personal." I looked at Brent's face on the flyer. "It never is." She sighed. "Nora, please don't make this into something. Brent is trying to do something good for the community." I turned toward her. And what was I trying to do? She stopped stirring. Only for a second. Then she said the sentence I never forgot. "You know what I mean. Number." I did not. Or maybe I did, and that was worse. What she meant was that Brent's pride had weight. Ray's legacy had weight. The family image had weight. My pain was just something I was expected to carry quietly. By the time the 4th of July barbecue came, I already knew I should not go. But families have a way of making absence look like guilt. If I stayed home, I would be dramatic. If I showed up and stayed quiet, I would be mature. So I went. Ray's house sat at the edge of town with a wide porch, peeling white paint and a backyard that sloped toward a row of cottonwoods. It was not rich or fancy. It was the kind of house with folding chairs in the garage, mismatched plates in the cabinet, and pencil marks on the pantry door, showing how tall every cousin had been since 1998. That house held our family history, but history depends on who gets remembered. Inside the living room, Ray had a wall of framed photos everyone called the family wall. My grandfather in his army uniform, Ray shaking hands with the mayor, Brent at the fire academy, Brent beside a fire truck, Brent holding a child after a safety event. Even my younger brother Kyle had a photo up there from the 6 months he volunteered before quitting to sell insurance. I stood in front of that wall holding a bowl of potato salad. My photo was not there. There was one picture of me on a side table beside a fake plant. I was 16 in it, wearing braces and a marching band t-shirt. My mother walked up beside me. "Oh," she said softly, noticing where I was looking. "You know your uncle's wall is mostly fire department stuff. I fly county rescue." She gave me that careful smile people use when they want you to accept a weak answer politely. "I know, honey, but those are more community pictures." I looked at Brent's framed fundraiser flyer. "Right," I said. "Community." Outside, Brent was already performing. He wore one of his own Built for the Flames shirts and stood near the grill with a beer in his hand. People laughed before he even finished his sentences, because they knew laughing was what the room expected from them. When he saw me, he lifted his bottle. "There she is," he called. "Everybody watch the skies. Nora's here to rescue the potato salad." A few cousins laughed. I set the bowl on the table. "Good to see you too, Brent." He leaned back, grinning. "Relax, we're family. If I can't mess with you, who can I mess with?" That was always his favorite excuse. "We're family," as if blood gave him permission to turn me into entertainment. For a second, I saw Ray's mouth open, just slightly, like he might say, "enough." Then Brent's wife laughed. My mother smiled tightly. My aunt lifted her phone for a picture, and Ray looked back down at his plate. That was the moment I knew. His silence was not confusion. It was a choice. The afternoon dragged on. Burgers burned at the edges. Kids chased each other with water balloons. Grandma asked if I was still flying that little helicopter, then turned away before I answered because Brent had started telling someone about his podcast interview. At one point, my cousin Maddie showed me her phone. "Did you see Brent's post?" It was a photo from earlier that afternoon. Everyone lined up in front of Ray's porch, smiling, arms around each other. The caption read, "Bennett Blood. Fireproof since 1968. I stared at it. I had been in that photo, standing at the far left beside my mother. But in Brent's post, I was gone, cropped out cleanly. Maddie's face changed as soon as she realized. "Maybe Instagram cut it weird," she said. We both knew it had not. Dinner started at sunset. Paper plates, corn on the cob, plastic cups sweating on the picnic table. The kind of family scene that looks warm from across the street. Then Brent stood and tapped his beer bottle with a fork. The whole yard quieted. My aunt immediately lifted her phone. "I just want to say something," Brent began. Of course he did. He turned toward Ray. "Dad, this town knows what you gave it. and I'm proud to carry that forward. The Firehouse fundraiser is almost at goal. The Built for the Flames training room is going to have your name on it. Everyone clapped. Ray looked emotional. I clapped too, because Ray had served Cedar Falls for 30 years. He deserved gratitude. Then Brent turned his smile toward me. And maybe Nora can land her helicopter outside the ribbon cutting, he said. Give people rides for $10. We'll call it the emergency Uber booth. Laughter rolled across the yard. My fork stopped halfway to my plate. Brent held up his hands. I'm kidding. She does important work. Somebody has to fly rich hikers out when they twist an ankle taking selfies. More laughter. My mother leaned toward me and whispered, Nora, don't make a face. That was when something inside me finally went cold. Not because of Brent, because of her. Because my mother had heard him humiliate me and still decided my reaction was the problem. Across the table, Brent's son Oliver looked confused. He was 8 then, with freckles, messy hair, and ketchup on his cheek. But Dad, he said Aunt Nora helps firefighters too, right? The laughter faded. Brent's smile tightened. Sure, buddy. In her own way. Oliver frowned. Didn't Grandpa say a helicopter saved him in the big fire? The whole table went still. Ray stared at his plate. My aunt's phone kept recording. Brent let out a short laugh. Lots of helicopters out there, Ollie. Then he looked straight at me. Anyway, let's not turn dinner into story time for the flying ambulance. I put my fork down. Carefully, quietly. The sound of metal against paper plate seemed louder than the fireworks starting in the distance. I looked at Ray. He did not move. I looked at my mother. She stared at her napkin. Then I stood. My chair scraped the patio. Every face turned toward me. Brent smirked, ready to make another joke. I said my call sign that night was Sparrow 3. No one laughed. Not because they understood. Because Ray did. His head snapped up. The color drained from his face so fast it looked like sickness. Brent blinked. What? I kept my voice calm. Canyon Ridge. Old Mill Road. North Drainage. Station 7 trapped. 1 man unconscious. Wind shift from the west. No clean landing zone. My aunt whispered Ray. Her phone was still recording. For once, Brent was the one trapped in a story he could not edit. I looked at him. You remember that part of the story, right? His jaw worked. I wasn't unconscious. No, I said. You were the one yelling over the radio that you couldn't breathe. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of every joke they had ever laughed at, every photo they had cropped, every time they had made me smaller so Brent could stand taller. Brent's face went red. Are you seriously doing this right now? I nodded once. Yes. He laughed without humor. At Dad's barbecue, at the table where you keep humiliating me. My mother whispered, Nora, please. This is Ray's day. Don't make everything about you. I turned to her. No, not this time. Those 4 words changed the air, because my family had heard me annoyed before. They had heard me tired. They had heard me polite. They had never heard me done. Ray pushed back his chair. He stood slowly, one hand on the table, his bad knee stiff from the fire. For a moment, he looked like the old chief again, not because he was strong, because everyone waited for him to tell them what was true. He looked at Brent first, then at Oliver, then at me. And after 3 years of silence, Ray finally chose truth over comfort. Nora flew us out, he said. Nobody moved. Ray's voice roughened. She came into smoke I wouldn't have ordered any pilot into. She put that helicopter down on a logging road barely wide enough for a pickup. She got my crew out. She got me out. Brent stared at him. Dad. Ray cut him off. And she got you out. Brent's mouth shut. Ray's eyes hardened. You have stood on that story like it belonged only to you. You put your face on posters. You sold shirts. You let this town clap for you while the person who brought you home sat at our table and listened to you mock her. My aunt lowered her phone slowly. My mother covered her mouth. Grandma whispered, "Oh my God." Brent looked around like he was searching for the version of the room where everyone still laughed with him. That room was gone. I didn't know, he said. I looked at him. You didn't ask. That landed harder than yelling. Because everybody knew it was true. Brent had built a brand around courage while never being brave enough to ask who saved him. My family had clapped because clapping was easier than questioning. My mother had kept peace by asking the wrong person to be quiet, and Ray had protected his son's pride at the cost of my dignity. Oliver looked up at his father. His small voice shook. "Dad, why didn't you say thank you?" Brent's face changed. Not completely. Men like Brent do not collapse all at once. They crack in public and try to pretend it is only the light hitting them wrong. He looked at me, then at Ray, then at his son. He started. No joke came. No speech. No smirk. Just a man standing in the mess his own ego had made. Ray reached into his pocket and pulled out something wrapped in a faded blue handkerchief. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was an old Station 7 challenge coin blackened along one edge, as if smoke had stained it permanently. "I carried this the day of the fire," Ray said. He stepped toward me. "I meant to give it to you." I looked at the coin, then at him. When? His eyes filled. When I had the courage. That was the first honest apology I had ever heard from him. Not perfect, not enough to erase years, but honest. Ray held out the coin. "Nora, I let this family believe courage had to be loud. I let my son become the face of a rescue that belonged to many people, and I let your name disappear from it. I was wrong." My mother started crying. Brent stood rigid like he wanted to leave, but could not do it with his son watching. "You're making me sound like I stole something," he muttered. I turned to him. "You did." His eyes flashed. "I almost died that day." "I know," I said. "I was there." That silenced him, because there was nothing clever to say back to the truth. For 3 years, he had been the hero of a story he could only tell because someone else brought him home. For 3 years, I had watched my family polish his pride with my silence. Now everyone could see the cost. Brent looked down. "I'm sorry," he said. It was quiet, thin, not enough, but it was the first time he had ever said it without making himself the victim. I took the coin from Ray. The metal was warm from his hand. Fireworks burst above the trees, red and white light flashing across everyone's faces. No one cheered. No one reached for another joke. For once, the Bennett family had no easy way out. And in that silence, I did not feel invisible anymore. I felt free. I left before dessert. My mother followed me to the driveway. "Nora," she called. I stopped beside my truck. She hugged herself like the summer night had turned cold. "I didn't know," she said. I looked at her. "You knew enough to tell me not to react." Her face crumpled. "I thought I was keeping peace." "No," I said gently. "You were keeping me quiet. That's different." She started crying harder. A year earlier, I would have comforted her. I would have softened my words. I would have protected her from feeling guilty about hurting me. That night, I let her feel it. Not out of cruelty, out of respect for myself. On the drive home, I rolled the windows down. The air smelled like smoke grass and barbecue. Ray's coin sat in the cup holder, catching flashes of fireworks through the windshield. I cried at the second stoplight, not because I regretted speaking, because part of me was grieving the years when I thought being easy to love meant being easy to ignore. The next morning, Brent deleted the cropped family photo. By noon, the fundraiser video was gone too. By dinner, every Built for the Flames poster with his face on it had disappeared from the Firehouse bulletin board. He did not post a public apology that day. Pride takes time to climb down from a stage it built for itself. But 2 days later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from him. "Nora, I keep thinking about what Oliver asked me. I don't know how to explain to my son that I let my ego get bigger than the truth. I'm sorry for every joke. I'm sorry for using Canyon Ridge like it only belonged to me. You saved my dad. You probably saved me too. I should have said thank you years ago." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Start by telling Oliver the whole story." He did more than that. That Sunday, Brent stood at the front of the Firehouse after church where half the town had gathered for coffee, donuts, and fundraiser updates. He looked uncomfortable without his usual grin. Ray stood beside him. So did Oliver. And me. Not because I wanted a ceremony. Because Ray had called and said, "You shouldn't have to be absent for them to tell the truth." Brent cleared his throat. "I've told the Canyon Ridge story a lot," he began. People quieted. And I left out the most important person. The room shifted toward me. I felt every eye. For years, attention had only come to me as a setup for a joke. This felt different. Not applause. Witness. Brent continued. My cousin Nora Bennett was the pilot who got Station 7 out. She flew in when ground crews couldn't reach us. She got my father home. She got me home. And I made jokes because I didn't understand what kind of courage it took. He swallowed. That's on me. Then he looked directly at me. Thank you, Nora. No one spoke for a second. Then Ray clapped. One clap. Then another. Soon the whole firehouse joined in. I stood there, hands at my sides, and let the sound reach me. I let it count. Not because applause creates worth, but because sometimes healing begins when the truth finally gets witnesses. The ribbon cutting happened 2 weeks later. The room was simple. Fresh paint, folding chairs, new rescue mannequins, a whiteboard, a coffee machine that made terrible coffee. Nothing fancy, nothing rich, just a small-town firehouse trying to train people better. But the sign above the door had changed. It no longer said, built for the flames. It said, the Canyon Ridge Training Room, honoring every hand that brought them home. Ray's name was there. Station 7 was there. County Air Rescue was there. And beneath that, in smaller letters, Sparrow 3. Brent was supposed to speak first. Everyone expected him to. The mayor even gestured toward him. But Brent took the microphone, looked at the crowd, then turned and held it out to me. For once, he gave up the spotlight before someone had to take it from him. My hands shook when I accepted it. I did not give a long speech. I said nobody comes home alone. Not from fires, not from grief, not from the stories that hurt us. We come home because someone tells the truth about who was there. Then I handed the microphone back. That was enough. After that day, small things changed. Ray took down the old fundraiser poster, the one with only him and Brent. In its place, he hung a new photo in the firehouse hallway. It was simple. Ray, Brent, Oliver, and me standing under the Station 7 sign. Under it, someone had written, "Courage is not always the loudest person in the room." My mother added my photo to the family wall. Not on the edge, not beside the fake plant. Right between my grandfather in his army cap and Ray in his chief uniform. When I saw it, she stood beside me, twisting her wedding ring. I should have done this years ago, she said. Yes, I answered. She nodded, tears in her eyes. No excuses. No but. That mattered. Brent changed too, though not overnight. People like him do not become humble in one clean scene. He still loved attention. He still talked too much. He still posted online. But when he told stories now, he named people. Dispatchers, EMTs, pilots, nurses, volunteers who brought sandwiches at midnight. He stopped treating courage like a spotlight and started treating it like a table with room for more chairs. One afternoon, months later, Brent called me. I'm speaking at Oliver's school career day, he said. Congratulations, I said carefully. I want you to come with me. That surprised me. Why? He was quiet for a second. Because I don't want my son growing up thinking the loudest job is the only one that matters. So I went. We stood in a third-grade classroom between a dentist and a woman who trained service dogs. Brent talked about fire safety. I talked about rescue flights, weather, teamwork, and how being scared does not mean you are not brave. At the end, Oliver raised his hand even though he knew both of us. My Aunt Nora flew through smoke to save my grandpa, he said proudly. And my dad says, heroes say thank you. The whole class turned toward me. Brent looked down at his shoes, smiling. For the first time, his silence did not hurt. It honored something. Years passed. Ray got older. His bad knee got worse. His lungs never fully recovered from the fire. But his voice stayed strong, especially whenever someone told the Canyon Ridge story wrong. No, he would interrupt. Don't skip the helicopter. Every Thanksgiving after that, the Bennett family changed a little. Not perfectly. Families do not become healthy just because one truth finally gets spoken. My mother still tried to smooth things over too quickly. My aunt still loved posting photos. Brent still occasionally slipped into old habits. But now when someone talked over me, people noticed. When Grandma prayed before dinner, she thanked those who serve where we cannot see. When the family took pictures, my aunt checked the frame twice. And every 4th of July before the fireworks, Oliver asked me to tell the flying part. I never made the story bigger than it was. I told him the truth. The smoke was bad. The landing was hard. People were scared. And everyone came home because many people did their jobs. 10 years after that first cruel toast, I came back to Ray's house for another 4th of July. The porch had been repainted. The grill was newer. The cottonwoods were taller. Inside, the family wall had grown. There was Ray in his uniform, Brent at a fundraiser for injured firefighters, my brother Kyle with his daughters, Grandma on her 91st birthday. And there in the center row was my photo, me in my flight suit helmet tucked under one arm, standing beside the helicopter I had once tried so hard not to mention. Under it, in my mother's handwriting, were the words, Nora Bennett Sparrow 3, the one who came back for them. I stood in front of that photo for a long time, not because I needed the wall anymore, but because the younger version of me had needed it badly. The woman holding potato salad in that living room, the cousin cropped from the family photo. The pilot listening to people laugh at a rescue they never bothered to understand. I wished I could tell her, one day they will learn your name. But even before they do, you are already whole. Oliver was 18 that summer. Tall, quiet, thoughtful. More like me than Brent, though nobody said it out loud. He found me on the porch after dinner turning Ray's old challenge coin over in his hand. Grandpa gave this to me, he said. He told me to ask you what it means. I sat beside him. The evening smelled like cut grass charcoal and rain somewhere far away. It means somebody remembered, I said. Oliver studied the coin. Were you mad that they didn't? I looked through the screen door. Inside, Brent was washing dishes without being asked. My mother was packing leftovers. Ray sat at the kitchen table, one hand on his cane, laughing softly at something Grandma said. The family noise felt different now. Less like a performance, more like home. Yes, I said. I was mad, but mostly I was hurt. Oliver nodded. Dad says hurt can turn people mean if they don't tell the truth. I smiled. Your dad learned some things the hard way. He says you taught him. No, I said. Life taught him. I just stopped protecting him from the lesson. Oliver turned the coin again. Do you think family has to earn respect? I looked at him carefully. That question mattered. Maybe every generation gets one chance to answer better than the one before. Yes, I said. Love can be given. Respect has to be practiced. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I want to be a paramedic. My throat tightened. Because of the fire. Because of what you said at my school, he answered. That scared people still need someone steady. Before I could answer, the screen door opened. Ray stepped onto the porch, slower now, cane in hand, but still carrying that quiet command. Paramedic, huh? He said. Good. This family could use fewer speeches and more useful people. Oliver laughed. So did I. Ray lowered himself into the chair beside us. For a while, none of us spoke. A helicopter passed high overhead, its sound faint but familiar. Ray looked up. Then he looked at me. I should have said thank you the first night, he said. I shook my head gently. You've said it since. Still, he whispered, a family shouldn't make someone bleed quietly before it decides they matter. Those words settled over the porch. Not heavy this time. Honest. Brent appeared in the doorway, drying his hands on a dish towel. He looked at the three of us, then at the coin in Oliver's hand. I used to think legacy was what people said about you, Brent said. Ray grunted. That's because you liked hearing yourself talk. Brent laughed softly. Yeah, I did. Then he looked at me. Now I think legacy is what people learn from how you fix what you broke. I held his gaze. That was the closest Brent ever came to saying, I know how badly I hurt you without dressing it up. And this time, it was enough. Not because everything was erased. Nothing real ever is. But because he had stopped asking me to pretend the wound never happened. That is what respect looks like sometimes. Not grand speeches. Not perfect apologies. Just people finally making room for the truth without punishing you for telling it. When the fireworks started, we all moved to the backyard. Children who had not even been born during Canyon Ridge ran across the grass with sparklers. My mother passed out pie. My aunt took photos, and this time she checked the frame before posting. Brent stood beside me as red light burst over the hills. Hey, he said. I glanced over. He lifted his soda can. Not dramatically. Not for attention. Just enough. To Sparrow 3. I looked at him for a moment. Then I touched my can to his. To coming home, I said. The fireworks cracked above us. Ray sat in his lawn chair, Oliver beside him. The old coin bright in the boy's palm. And for the first time in years, The silence between the bursts did not feel like something hiding. It felt peaceful, earned, full. I used to think the worst thing a family could do was insult you. I was wrong. The worst thing a family can do is know your heart, know your sacrifice, know your pain, and still choose the easier story because it makes someone else look better. But I also learned this. You do not have to scream to reclaim your dignity. Sometimes you just have to stop laughing at the joke they made out of you. Sometimes you have to stand up at the table, say the name they erased, and let the truth do what silence never could. Family is not proven by blood last names, old photos, or who gets the loudest applause. Family is proven by who tells the truth about you when you are not demanding it, by who makes space for your pain instead of calling it drama, by who teaches the next generation that respect is not a trophy handed to the loudest person in the room. It is something practiced, at dinner tables, in family photos, in apologies, in the stories people choose to tell correctly. So if you have ever been the quiet one in your family, the one they joked about, cropped out, talked over, or only remembered when they needed something, I hope you remember this. Being unseen does not mean you are small. Being silent does not mean you are weak. And when the day finally comes for you to speak, you do not need to destroy anyone. You only need to stand in the truth long enough for everyone else to feel how much it weighs. Because dignity is not given back by the people who took it. It begins the moment you stop asking them for permission to know your own worth. And if your family laughed at you for years, then only respected you after the truth embarrassed them, would you forgive them, or would you never sit at that table again?